All right, let's jump right in. We are talking about a massive shift in how businesses handle risk. We're moving away from just reacting to problems and stepping into a world where we can actually predict them, all thanks to big data.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the new kinds of risks we're all facing. Then, we'll see how big data gives us this incredible predictive power. After that, it's all about real-world examples. Then we'll tackle trust and ethics. And finally, we'll wrap up with a toolkit you can actually use.
Okay, so first up, the new age of risk. We've got to understand why the old playbook for managing threats it just doesn't cut it anymore.
You know, the challenge today isn't just one thing going wrong. Experts have a term for it, polycrisis. It's this idea that risks are all tangled together now. Think about it. A dip in the market can cause a huge reputational problem online, and guess who's waiting to take advantage of that chaos? Cyber attackers. It's all connected, happening all at once.
But what if you could see through all that noise? I want you to look at this number, 30%. That's the potential drop in mistakes when predicting things like loan defaults, just by using big data. That is a game changer. It's a huge jump in accuracy that turns a massive headache into something you can actually manage.
And that leads us perfectly into our second section, big data's predictive power. Because this isn't just about dodging bullets anymore. It's about building a serious competitive edge.
So what do we really mean when we say this? Well, at its heart, it's about using data sets that are massive, that's the volume, coming in super fast, that's velocity, and are all different types, that's variety. The goal? To spot threats as they're happening, in real time, not weeks later when you're reading a report about it.
And this comparison just says it all, doesn't it? On one hand, you have the old way, looking backward, using these small, neat little files of what already happened. But on the other hand, you have big data platforms, which are looking, everywhere. They're pulling in live data from social media, from shipping logs, even from satellite pictures to paint this constantly updating picture of risk.
Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a weather radar for your business, right? A meteorologist doesn't just look at yesterday's temperature. No way. They're pulling in satellite data, sensor readings, and historical models to tell you if you need an umbrella tomorrow. Big data does exactly that, but for things like supply chain breakdowns or huge market swings.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but let's get practical. How are companies actually using this stuff to get real, tangible results?
Check this out. This is a fantastic example. A huge global insurance company used big data to basically create a digital twin of their trading systems and then slammed it with billions of past transactions to see where it would break. And the result? A mind-blowing 90% drop in critical glitches going live. They weren't just fixing problems, they were stopping them before they were even born.
And that kind of success doesn't just happen by accident. It comes from a really structured process, an end-to-end pipeline just like this. It always starts with data ingestion. Just pulling in all that raw data. Then you've got to clean it up. From there, you build your predictive models, then you visualize the patterns to make sense of it all, and finally, you get actionable recommendations for the business. It's a clear path from messy data to a smart decision.
But of course, with all this data comes a whole lot of responsibility. And that brings us to a really critical part of this whole conversation, building trust by dealing with the human and ethical side of it all.
And look, this is the question on everyone's mind, right? It's a totally fair question. If we're using more data, especially people's personal data, aren't we just creating a bigger target for privacy breaches?
The answer, and it's a big one, is to protect data from the very beginning, by design. We're talking about using things called privacy-enhancing technologies, or PETs. One of the coolest is homomorphic encryption. It's this wild technology that lets you analyze data while it's still encrypted. Nobody can see the raw info. You combine that with auditable pipelines that track every single touchpoint with the data, and suddenly you have a system built on trust and compliance.
Okay, so now that we've got the what, the why, and the how, let's get to the good stuff. Our final section is a practical toolkit to help you and your team actually start doing this.
The great news is there are a ton of amazing resources out there. You can jump into online courses on Coursera, grab a textbook, or even play around in a simulation sandbox like the Open Risk Academy. There are professional frameworks and even huge public data sets you can start experimenting with today.
And as you get going, just keep these 5 tips in your back pocket. Number 1, start small. Prove it works, then go big. 2, map stakeholders early. Get everyone on the same page from day 1. 3, version everything so you can always trace your steps. 4, and this is huge, embed privacy from the very start. And finally, number 5,
Tell stories with visuals. Nobody wants to read a spreadsheet, they want to see the insight. So, that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. In this crazy new world of risk and opportunity, is your organization using its data to see around the corner and prepare for what's next? Or is it still stuck in the rearview mirror, just reacting to things that have already happened?